Chapter 5. Puff, a plume of white smoke filled the air as the third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, smoked his pipe. He flipped over some paperwork while relishing the taste of tobacco in his mouth. "Knock, knock. Enter," he said with a deep and old voice as he gently placed the paperwork to the side and straightened his back in his chair awaiting his guest. From the other side of the door was heard a cough. "Ahem. Excuse me for disturbing you, Lord Hokage." The door to the Hokage's room opened to reveal a Jonin, Kotetsu Higan, one of the guards to the entrance of Konoha. "Oh, Kotetsu, what brings you here?" Hiruzen asked. As Kotetsu walked inside, Kimimaro, Haku, and myself followed suit. As it turns out, even though we were a bit nervous as to how things would go down, aside from the Konoha guards being a bit wary and asking a lot of questions, they ended up humoring our request and took us to see the third Hokage. Hiruzen gave a surprised look as he saw the three unfamiliar children walk in behind Kotetsu. Kotetsu cleared his throat before explaining the situation to the third Hokage. "Lord Third, these three children claim that they fled from the country of water. They claim that they aren't affiliated with the village hidden in the mist," Kotetsu said. Hiruzen had a pensive look on his face before speaking. Even if they claim they are not affiliated with the village hidden in the mist, it can't be denied that they were born in the country of water, therefore, they are rightful citizens of that country." Kotetsu gave a sheepish look and rubbed the back of his neck before Hiruzen continued on. "Ha ha ha, all right, I don't want to make things difficult. Children, why don't you tell me your names? Why have you come so far to Konoha?" Hiruzen asked amiably. He then gave another puff of smoke from his pipe. The three of us looked at each other before I stepped up to speak. "Greetings, Lord Hokage, my name is Izaya. Karasuma Izaya. These two are my sworn brothers, Yuki Haku and Kaguya Kimimaro." "Oh." Hiruzen let out a surprised remark and also a look of deep contemplation. He stroked his beard as he spoke. "Yuki. I recall there was a famous Yuki clan in the Land of Water, however, I heard their clan was wiped out after the Kekii Genkai War a while back. And Kaguya, I was certain that I received news regarding the Kaguya clan. It waged war against the village hidden in the mist and they were exterminated not long ago. Forgive me, but I've not heard of the Karasuma clan or tribe." Both Haku and Kimimaro flinched inwardly, having their past brought up. Hiruzen seemed to notice this, which inwardly confirmed his suspicion that these two were indeed of the famous Yuki and Kaguya clan he mentioned. He softened his expression after realizing that these two children in front of him were probably the last of their clan. "Ahem. My apologies for bringing up such a dark part of history. It seems from your reaction that you both are surviving members of the Yuki and Kaguya clan. I'm sorry children such as yourselves had to go through something as terrible as a war like that." He then turned his attention towards me. "You said your name is Karasuma Izaya, correct? I see that the three of you indeed have very close ties together, and it appears that you are able to speak for both of your companions. Would you mind telling me why the three of you have come all this way?" I turned my head at the Jonin, Kotetsu, who brought us in before turning back to face the third Hokage. "I must first apologize, Lord Third Hokage. Before I answer you, might I be so bold to ask for an audience in private? This concerns my life." Hiruzen became more and more curious about these three children, and before Kotetsu could protest, he said, "Very well. Kotetsu, why don't you bring Haku and Kimimaro and wait in the hallway while I speak to our young friend here?" Kotetsu gave a defeated look but assented whilst I nodded silently to Haku and Kimimaro, letting them know it was okay. After they walked out they shut the door behind them. Now, young friend, what is it that you wish to speak to me in private about? Hiruzen continued. Lord Third, to tell you the truth, I am actually an abandoned experimental subject of Orochimaru. Hiruzen's eyes nearly jumped out of their sockets as he exclaimed, "What?" Followed by a series of coughing from inhaling the smoke on his pipe too fast. After a few seconds he finally calmed down and studied me more closely with his eyes. After more rounds of inquiry and explaining I came to tell him the whole story, of course minus the part of my reincarnation and a few other minor details. Overall I painted the big picture of how Haku, Kimimaro, and I came to be here today. And that is why we sincerely hope you grant us permission to stay and be a part of this village. I finished saying and gave a deep 90-degree bow. Hiruzen mused thoughtfully as he went back to stroking his beard and puffing smoke out of his pipe. Raise your head. There's no need for you to show such humility. Your circumstance was brought about by my foolish disciple. Sigh. Oh Orochimaru, what have you been doing? In short, that boy Haku and Kimimaro no longer have a home to return to. They are not listed as rogue ninja as they have not committed any acts of evil. They are not eligible to be claimed by the village hidden in the mist since they were merely born in the country of water but not affiliated with the Shinobi system there, and you were abandoned by Orochimaru as he believed you to be dead. You are not actually blind but possess the Sharingan, and the reason you wear a sealing blindfold is to ensure your safety from other Shinobi who may harbor evil intention of your eyes. You all wish to become part of the village hidden in the leaves as proper leaf Shinobi. I looked up from my position as I gave a curt nod and replied, "Yes, Lord Third." For what seemed like a lifetime was actually just a split second, but waiting for Lord Third to make a decision on the spot was nerve-wracking. Very well. I consent to this. I breathed out a sigh of relief at that moment. Hiruzen gave an amiable laugh before looking straight at me. Would you mind showing me your eyes? I hesitated for a second, but slowly took off my ragged black blindfold revealing the blood-red-black patterned eyes of the Sharingan. What caught me off guard was that Lord Third had a look of sorrow the minute he saw them. I understood at that moment that he probably felt grief for what he put Itachi through and sorrow for the loss of an entire clan that he couldn't protect. Hiruzen let out a sigh and then pulled something out of a drawer. It was a fine black-colored cloth. Before I could react, Lord Third formed some hand seals and then placed his hands on the black cloth before saying seal. A beautiful golden light emanated from the cloth before dissipating. I understand why you would like to keep your eyes hidden from sight. In fact, I'm impressed you could even perform the one-way concealing visual seal in the first place. It is true that the topic of Sharingan and the Uchiha clan right now are sensitive subjects, therefore, at least for now, I will help you conceal your Sharingan. The sealing jutsu I just performed is known as the one-way heavenly concealment visual seal and is many times more powerful than the one you had on. With your sealing jutsu you could fool ordinary ninja but not those who either wield special dojutsu of their own or are adept at sensory-type techniques. With the one-way heavenly concealment visual seal I used, it can conceal your eyes from all those who wish to see through this blindfold. Even those with the Bakugan or Mangekyou Sharingan. Alright, come put this blindfold on and then tell the others to come in. While all that happened I had watched intently and memorized the hand seals Lord Third had used to perform the sealing technique and stored the memory in the back of my mind, compliments of the Sharingan. I nodded to Lord Third and thanked him for the blindfold before tying it on and calling the others back inside. Hiruzen looked up at Kotetsu before saying, Kotetsu, I've heard what our young friend Izaya had to say and have come to a decision. From this day forth Konoha will have gained 3 excellent young shinobi. I will have their transfer papers prepared so that they may begin enrollment at the academy starting next week. Kotetsu gave a confused look. Then again he wasn't really against the 3 youngins sticking around. They were well behaved enough and didn't seem like bad kids. Hiruzen then continued on, I will finalize their paperwork today and have them listed in our system. Please find a nice place for the 3 of them to live in the meantime. Yes Lord Third. I shall do as you say. He saluted the 3rd Hokage before bringing the 3 kids out to look for a place to live. Kotetsu brought the 3 of us to get a glimpse of the essential spots in town, such as where we could get food, buy clothes, the location of the academy, where the training grounds were and more. As we were walking around town finishing up our tour, I noticed a familiar bright orange color attire out of the corner of my eye and briefly paused. I know I have it here somewhere. Isn't that Naruto? I silently thought to myself. And of course he's looking for a coupon to Ishiraku's ramen shop. Found it. Naruto laughed in his disheveled appearance. I knew I had it on me. I forgot I placed the coupon in the inside pocket of my jacket. Haku momentarily paused and turned to look at me after he noticed I wasn't walking by their side anymore. He stared where I was looking and saw a disheveled orange-clothed yellow-haired kid getting some ramen. Confused at why Izaya had stopped, he called out, Big brother, is something wrong? Oh. I snapped out of my stupor and turned my head back to Haku and jogged over to him. Sorry, I just thought that guy was a bit interesting. Let's catch up to Kimimaro and Kotetsu-sensei. MN. Haku nodded. He gave Naruto one more quick glance before running alongside Izaya back to Kimimaro and Kotetsu. Not long after, Kotetsu brought us to some apartment buildings, and after discussing in private to the person in charge, we got settled into our apartment room number. All right, you 3 have your own apartment rooms. Izaya is in room 309, Haku gets 310, and Kimimaro is in 311. For now the Leaf Village will cover the cost of your living quarters until you 3 graduate from the academy. You'll receive a monthly stipend to help you buy some food to eat. It's not much, so please spend it wisely, okay? You'll receive a letter sometime in the next couple of days to officiate your enrollment to the academy. Since the school year started already, you'll be announced as transfer students. From this day forth you'll be citizens of the Land of Fire and Shinobi of Konoha. Lord Third has gone out of his way to accept you 3 kids, so don't disappoint him, okay? Alright, any questions? The 3 of us simply nodded our heads as Kotetsu went on with his speech. No questions, I said. I then looked at Haku and Kimimaro, and as if we all understood each other, we all cupped our fists as a show of respect and bowed, saying, Thank you for taking care of us, Kotetsu-sensei. Kotetsu instantly turned red in the face from embarrassment and sheepishly rubbed the back of his neck. He turned his head to look away and said, It's only natural that I should help you kids in need. Don't think about it too much. If you've got any questions, you can always come find me. I'll be at the main entrance guarding the gate most of the time. Alright, I've been away from duty too long, I'm sure my partner is getting anxious. He then turned to look at the 3 kids in front of him one last time before saying, Take good care of yourselves, okay? He then disappeared in a puff of smoke with the body flicker jutsu. He seemed nice. Haku commented. As long as he doesn't hurt you too. Kimimro remarked. Ha ha. I chuckled lightly, wondering if Kimimro will ever lighten up a little. Okay, let's check out our rooms and rest, it's been a long day. We'll meet up tomorrow morning and go shopping for some new clothes. Kimimro and Haku nodded before we parted ways. Chapter 6. The next morning Kimimro, Haku, and I met in the hallway of our apartment. Even though we haven't gotten our stipend for food yet, we still have the Rio from the bandits we killed. That should be plenty enough for us to buy some new clothes and gear, I said as I quickly gave Haku and Kimimro a once-over. Yup, they definitely need a maki-over. I can't have Haku continue dressing like he currently is. He's making his gender too ambiguous. He could be very popular with the ladies with the right outfit. As for Kimimro, well, it's a bit inconvenient for him to wear too much clothes due to his special Kekii Genkai, so I guess less is more for him. Follow me, I'll help you both pick out new outfits and then we can go grab some breakfast. Okay big brother. I could use some new senbon needles anyway. Haku replied. MN. Kimimro simply nodded. It didn't take us long to reach the clothing shop that Kotetsu showed us yesterday. It was called Essential Gear and Wear Tailor. Simple and to the point, I thought. As we entered, we were politely greeted by the shop owner, who also gave us a curious glance more than once. I heard her mumble something about not being familiar with our faces before. I guess we did look strange enough that if anyone saw us at least once they would have had an impression. We were three strange kids after all, and one looked like a girl, one looked to be blind, and the last had two strange red dots atop his forehead. The entire time we were in the shop, the owner, an old lady, didn't try to hide the fact that she was staring at us. I don't blame her. It was early in the morning and we were the only customers in her shop. Furthermore, it looked like the blind kid, me, was the one picking the outfits for the other two kids. I suppose we did make for a comedic scene, like a blind mama duck and her two baby ducks following suit. After an hour of browsing, contemplation, and trying on various outfits, we had finally found the ones. For Haku, he sported a white t-shirt and a blue vest with high-rise collar. He wore white wrist guards, blue pants with black greaves, white bandages wrapped around his right thigh, a turquoise color jacket tied on his waist, and a ninja tool pouch on his right waist. MN. I nodded silently to myself. He looks much better like this. As for Kimimro, he wore a long-sleeve white haori with black borders and a black sash tying it in place by his waist with no shirt underneath, while donning a black capri pants. Once again I nodded in satisfaction. Simple truly is best for Kimimro. As for myself, I chose a long-sleeve black cloak with a high-rise collar that had 9 white tomo patterns printed on the back. I wore a white t-shirt underneath and put on black pants with white bandage wraps around both legs from below the knee to my ankles. I also had a ninja tool pouch on my right waist. As we went to pay for our new attire at the counter, the old lady struck up a conversation with us, no longer being able to contain her curiosity. Well, hello young lads. My name is Maito, I hope you found everything all right. She smiled and said in an old but very gentle voice. Ah, yes, you have a great variety of clothing here, which gives us a lot more options. I replied. Maito gave an inquisitive look as she rang up the payment number and said, I apologize if I'm being intrusive, but I couldn't help noticing that you were the one who chose the outfits. Ahem. I coughed. Then replied as kindly and as convincingly as possible, well, my companions here aren't that picky with their fashion sense, and so I took it upon myself to help out. I happen to be a sensory type ninja, so even though I'm blind it makes me more attuned to my other senses. Perhaps you didn't hear us since we moved around a bit, but I asked my companions what the color and style of the clothing were before picking for them. I simply piece what I imagined it to look like in my head. Oh. Very incredible, young man. Your fashion choice is definitely spot on. Please, allow me to give you all a discount. She replied amiably. Thank you very much, Miss Maito-san. I replied. Kimimaro and Haku simply clasped their fist and bowed in salute as a show of respect and gratitude. Maito, embarrassed, simply chuckled lightly as we completed our purchase. She gladly lent the changing room to us so we could wear our new clothes right away. After shopping for clothes, we went shopping for some new senbon needles for Haku, eventually getting him a new set of long sharp needles. I was looking for a set of kunai similar to that of the fourth Hokage, except they were only custom made and it would take more money than I currently had to have a blacksmith custom make a complete set of 5 for me. I had also wanted mine to be distinguishable from the 4THS, so instead of a black iron color with a silver edge like Lord Fourth, I wanted mine to be a blue-silver color with a white edge. I silently cursed at the fact that I lacked money. I could only wait until we graduated from the academy to be inducted as a genin. Then I could take genin level missions for money. For now I needed to continue focusing on building up my foundations and training. I needed more information on other techniques, and the perfect place to get that was the academy and the library. The academy would have more advanced techniques stored in their archives, but I wouldn't be able to access those until sometime next week. As for the library, it should have the most basic of techniques and information on fundamentals, so that'd be a good place to start. I ended up buying a storage-type scroll before leaving the weapon shop. We wandered around town a bit more and ended up spending a few hours at the library. When noon rolled around, we left to find some food. We totally missed breakfast since we were too busy exploring town, so we were definitely hungry. Where do you guys want to eat? I asked. I'm not sure, big brother. Anything is fine with me, replied Haku. Me as well, Kimimaro replied. I inwardly sighed to myself. One day, hopefully, they will be able to voice their opinion on things like this. I gave a thoughtful look before remembering from my previous life that there was this Korean barbecue-style restaurant that Team Asuma always ate at called Yakiniku. Okay, since you both don't mind me choosing, then let's go eat some barbecue meat. We quickly made our way around town trying to find this place. After 10 minutes of walking around to no avail, we paused on the side of the street. Big brother, maybe we should ask for directions, Haku said. I gave a quick sweep of the area and spotted a familiar and famous ninja. Hatake Kakashi. He was leaning on a wall by the side of a store reading a book. He looked like he was waiting for someone. I turned to Haku and Kimimaro. I'll go ask, you two wait here. I quickly jogged over to where Kakashi was. Yup, I inwardly noted. He's reading Make Out Paradise by Jiraiya. Kakashi looked up from his book as I approached him. Hello. I cupped my fist and greeted. Hello. He nodded back. Before the situation could turn awkward, I asked my question. My brothers and I were looking for a restaurant called Yakiniku. Would you mind pointing us in the right direction? Oh. Yakiniku, huh? Kakashi pointed down the road and said, go straight down that way and take your second right, then follow the path and take your third left, the restaurant is on the right side. I cupped my fist once more and bowed before saying my thanks and left alongside Kimimro and Haku. Kakashi remained there with a pensive look in his eyes at the place where we disappeared from. "Oh, something the matter, Kakashi?" said an aged-old voice. This snapped Kakashi out of his daze. "Lord Third." He saluted. Hiruzen gave a slight chuckle before saying, "What seems to be on your mind?" "The 3 kids you mentioned earlier just stopped by and asked me for directions," he replied. "Oh, so you've gotten to see them, have you? What do you think?" Hiruzen inquired. Kakashi gave a thoughtful look before replying, "Well, I don't think your decision to let them into the village is a problem. They seem like good capable kids." "Ha ha ha, that's good then," Hiruzen replied amiably. "Kakashi, you know that I am already very old. If one day, something happens to the village and I lose my life, I hope that you can also look after those 3 kids. They are a bit special. I know I have already demanded a lot from you with watching over Naruto and Sasuke, so I apologize that I must ask more of you. Lord Third, please don't say such words. You've done more than enough for the village. Anything I can do to help alleviate your burdens is something that I should do. Compared to you, these tasks are minor." Kakashi respectfully replied. "Amen." Hiruzen gave a slight nod. Following the directions Kakashi gave us, we quickly found the restaurant, and after eating our fill we decided to head for the training grounds Kotetsu showed us the other day. These were public training grounds and there were quite a few of them. Some were being used by academy students and others by Genin or Chunin level ninja. The 3 of us looked and chose a training ground further away and more secluded than the rest. This was more of a battlefield-style training ground where Shinobi used to spar. It was much more widespread and was surrounded by trees and a river. Kimimro and Haku began sparring to practice their taijutsu. Haku had the speed and agility advantage over Kimimro, but Kimimro had the power and techniques advantage over Haku. I took out the storage type scroll and activated it, summoning forth a box of water balloons I bought earlier when wandering around town. Alright, I made enough Flying Thunder God paper seals and I'll practice using them later. I've already discerned what my main Geku Sharingan can do, but I can't afford to practice their abilities at my current level. As for my Sharingan, it's helpful for discerning and copying techniques, but I can't use it to cast Genjutsu or that'll reveal my secret. I'll focus on my Flying Thunder God technique, some ninjutsu, taijutsu, and I'll work towards developing the Rasengan. Hence a week of training and waiting around for Haku, Kimimro, and I went by without much of a hitch. Comment. 12 comments. Vote. Chapter 8, The Academy. Chapter 7. Ding dong ding dong. The academy bell rang, signaling the start of class. Everyone got in their seats respectfully and awaited for their instructor Iruka-sensei to start class. As per usual, Sakura and Ino were staring infatuated at the cold and indifferent-looking Sasuke while Naruto gave him a look of annoyance. It was at this moment that Iruka opened and walked in through the door. Just as Iruka stepped into the classroom entrance, a bucket fell from the top of the doorway. Naruto silently snickered, except what he expected to happen ended up not happening. The bucket that was supposed to fall on top of Iruka's head was instead caught by me. Ah! Iruka put on a bewildered expression and then stared at Naruto and sighed. Naruto, was it you who put the bucket on top of the doorway? Oh man, it didn't work. Naruto remarked, completely ignoring Iruka's question. Iruka simply faced palm before revelation hit him. the bucket didn't fall on top of his head. He turned his head to see that the bucket was being held in my hands. When did he, how did he, Iruka silently questioned in his head. Ahem. He coughed. Thank you for catching that bucket. Iruka nodded to me. I simply nodded back and then placed the bucket down in the corner of the front room. Soon after, Iruka walked to the front of the class followed by Kimimaro, Haku, and myself. Everyone else in the class silently whispered amongst themselves at this new development. Sajuk temporarily opened his eyes and stared with the slightest bit of curiosity at us before turning away with indifference per usual. All right class, quiet down. I have an announcement to make. Iruka said. I know class already started a few months ago, but we have 3 new transfer students. He turned to us and asked us to introduce ourselves, so I stepped up first. Hello, my name is Karasuma Izaya. You can call me Izaya. I'm 7 years old this year and I'll be in your care. 7 years old. Just like most of us. He looks pretty handsome, right? Wait, is he blind? The whispers continued in class as Kimimaro and Haku both introduced themselves as well. My name is Kimimaro. You can call me Kimimaro. I am also 7 years old. My name is Haku, and you can also just call me Haku. I hope we get along. He smiled. He's too pretty to be a guy, right? Naruto questioned. Okay, quiet down everyone. They will be attending the academy with all of you till graduation, so be nice. Izaya-kun, Kimimaro-kun, Haku-kun, the 3 of you can pick anywhere with open seats available. Iruka said. The 3 of us nodded and chose a spot near the back by the windowsill. Class is most likely going to be pretty boring since it'll only be the basics like learning how to form hand signs and learning what elemental nature affinities are. I silently mused. Like Sajuk, I stared out the window for most of the class. Naturally they were talking about how to determine elemental affinities and what their properties were, so I let the lecture go through one ear and out the other. After class was over, some of our classmates came to converse with us. Among them were faces I recognized such as Choji, Shikamaru, Kiba, Shino, Hinata, and Naruto. Hey, how did you catch the bucket earlier? Can you even see with that blindfold on? Naruto asked. Oi, is that something polite to ask? Shikamaru lightly scolded. What? It was a serious question. Naruto replied. I simply turned to face them, but before I could reply Haku spoke up. Something like that isn't enough to stop my big brother. Even though he's blind, he can see just as well as any of us, maybe even better since he's a sensory type ninja. Oh. So what does that mean? Naruto remarked. Shikamaru and the rest simply let out a loud sigh whilst Hinata blushed and was the only one who seriously gave an explanation to Naruto. Well. So you can do stuff like see chakra without looking and you can sense things in your surroundings, that's pretty cool. Hey, did you guys get all that stuff Iruka-sensei was saying earlier? It was kinda confusing, you know. If you'd like, I can help you. Hinata whispered softly to herself, but of course no one ended up hearing her as Choji cut in. So, have you guys been to Yakiniku-Q yet? They serve the best barbecue meat. Do you ever want to talk about anything other than eating Choji? Kiba remarked. Our friendly banter continued on for a bit longer before Kimimaro, Haku, and I excused ourselves. Since we became official students of the academy, we were granted access to the lowest level tier of techniques available to us. The tiers went from D, C, B, and A, with A being the highest rank of techniques. S rank, forbidden, and secret techniques were all kept strictly sealed away in the Hokage's residence. Fortunately and surprisingly, we were also granted access to the C-rank techniques. This was probably due to Lord Third pulling some strings, since most kids at our academy don't have access to these techniques until after they graduate. If kids at the academy reach the level where they can utilize C-rank techniques, then they would learn them from either their clans, parents, tutors, or buy them from special shops. Seeing as how the three of us have no background here, Lord Third probably did this as a favor to us in order to help us grow. The three of us looked around at the available D-rank jutsus before walking down towards the floor below where the C-rank jutsus were kept. The more powerful or complicated the technique was, the further down we had to walk. Which made sense, after all. If there was an attack and the buildings got crushed in the process, it'd be safer to have the scrolls that recorded techniques and information below ground. And I'm willing to bet that all the techniques located here are all copies. The originals are probably stored safely away at some concealed bunker. The three of us took a look at some C-rank jutsus that looked promising and stayed there for a few hours to memorize its contents. As I finished reading and memorizing the information on some scrolls, I prepared to leave. Haku, Kimimro, I'm done looking around. If you guys have more things you want to learn here, then take your time. I'll probably go out and do some training before heading back home. Haku nodded. Okay, big brother. I'll stick around for a little while longer. There are some interesting water techniques that I want to memorize. Me too. Since my elemental affinity is with earth, there are some earth-style jutsu I wish to learn. Kimimro added. I nodded and then walked back up the stairs and out of the academy. Looks like it's getting pretty close to evening already, I mentally noted and looked up at the sky. I took a quick glance around me, but no student in sight. I guess Shikamaru and the rest of the gang went to eat some barbecued meat after class. Not sure what they're up to now though. I've got a few hours of daylight still, so that should be good enough to try out some new stuff. Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Not a second later I reappeared near a paper tag stuck on a tree that was marked with my own unique Flying Thunder God sealing formula. This was a secluded area in the forest surrounding Konoha that I discovered during the week before Kimimro, Haku, and I started attending classes. It was nice and quiet here, where I didn't have to worry about random prying eyes. As long as no one intentionally tracked me down here, I wouldn't be discovered. Alright, I pretty much have a general understanding of using the Flying Thunder God technique. I'm only missing my own unique kunais. I've placed papers with my unique sealing formula in multiple places so I could instantly teleport to them in case of emergencies. According to Iruka-sensei, one of the requirements to graduate is the ability to use the cloning jutsu. For me that's really simple, but it isn't that great of help in actual combat. Even though I still have to work on stage 2 of my Rasengan training, I'll focus the rest of my time today perfecting the Shadow Clone Jutsu first, and if I succeed in that, then I could potentially double my training speed. Thud. Dust slowly rose in the air and heavy panting sounds were heard. Huff. 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 Ha! I let out a deep and relaxed breath as I lay motionless on the ground. Sweat dripped from my face and body. Well, I call that a success, I smiled. I looked up and gazed at the starry night sky. The moon lit up the forest, giving off a scene of beauty and tranquility. A small, soft and gentle breeze caressed the trees, the flowers, and the surface of the river. I slowly closed my eyes through my blindfold and relaxed my body and mind as I steadied my breathing and felt the comfort of the wind brush my face and my hair. I could sense myself getting stronger with every day, but I knew it still wasn't enough yet. As I lay there in the comfort of the silent forest, I contemplated about what was to come. In the future, Naruto will steal one of the forbidden scrolls known as the Scroll of Seals in the Hokage's residence in order to learn the Shadow Clone Jutsu. The Shinobi called Mitsuki will then attempt to steal it and Iruka will intervene. In the end, Mitsuki fails. I don't think I need to intervene for something like that. This way it'll help Naruto grow as an individual and he'll realize Iruka is more important to him than he realizes. The problem is Orochimaru. I know he will instigate an attack on Konoha, but now I'm not too sure how that will play out. Originally he had the help of Kimimaro in dealing with the fourth Kazekage and his entourage, but Kimimaro is on my side now, so I'm not too keen if things will play out the same. It's possible that Orochimaru will still succeed and instigate an attack during the Chunin exams. He'd probably just have to put in a little more effort. If that does happen, how should I respond? Do I tell Lord Third? That'll draw suspicion towards me though if I know about the attack with no evidence. Do I let Lord Third die so Naruto and Jiraiya can bring Tsunade back as the fifth? I need her skills in order to heal Kimimaro. Will she even come back if Lord Third doesn't die, or will she only return after Lord Third is dead and is convinced by Naruto and Jiraiya? The problem with knowing the future is that I can step in and intervene at big moments like these, but then it would alter the future I do know of, and from that point knowing the future won't be as large of an advantage to me anymore. I don't even know if I'll have the sufficient strength yet to even change the outcome if and when Orochimaru attacks the Leaf Village. In fact, what if Orochimaru recognizes me as one of his experimental subjects? He originally wanted Sasuke's body, but if he realizes that I survived, what if he wants my body? Maybe he won't recognize me since it'll be quite a few years later, but still, the possibility remains. Oh. I know. I'm an idiot. I practice the Flying Thunder God technique. All I need to do is somehow give Lord Third an object that has my Flying Thunder God mark on it sometime before the Chunin exam begins. Then, no matter how dire the situation gets, I just need to reserve enough chakra to ensure that I can utilize the Flying Thunder God Jutsu to save Lord Third in case the situation turns very bad. I'll have to time it well and make sure that Lord Third doesn't activate the Reaper Death Seal technique. Since Jiraiya will also be in the village at that time, then we don't have to worry about having someone capable of defeating Orochimaru. But then he won't have his arms crippled and Jutsu taken away, that leaves for an uncertain future again. Then there's Sasuke and his whole Avengers Heart ordeal, and he'll most likely defect to Orochimaru to gain more power. Or do I intervene for that too? Wow, I'm back to square one. Contemplating about what I know of the future and trying to control it so it's different but not different isn't going to work. No matter what, I either intervene and possibly change the shape of the future, or I just let the future play out as I know it and I care only for myself. Screw it. This is my life now and this is the world I'm living in. Lord Third is a good person and took Haku, Kimimaro, and myself in. If I have the chance to save him, then I will. I'll worry about everything else as it comes. No use thinking about them now since everything might be different by then. The most important thing is getting stronger, that way no matter what changes happen, I'll have the strength to take them head on. I opened my eyes and started my quiet and silent trek back to my cozy apartment. Chapter 8. Time skip 4 years. Beep, 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 click. My hand lightly smacked the alarm clock by my nightstand, shutting off the noise as I turned to look at the time. My eyes still groggy, but thanks to the Sharingan I clearly saw the time, which read 5 a.m. The slowly creeping light of daybreak attempted to penetrate my curtains, signaling that it was still dark out but getting lighter by the minute. As I lay on my stomach, one arm sprawled outwards toward my alarm clock and another arm underneath my pillow, I gave a slight moan from the soreness of my body and being woken up at this hour. I had trained until my body and mind were completely exhausted and only stopped when 3 a.m. rolled around the corner. A poor choice on my part. Even with my body's amazing regenerative abilities due to having a large portion of Hashirama's cells in me, 2 hours of rest was most definitely not enough to restore myself to peak state. I usually wake up at this time to do some morning exercises and meditation, but it looks like I'll have to skip out on the exercise portion today. I unceremoniously kicked off my bed sheets and rolled out of bed. I gave my body a good stretch and a soft yawn before heading into the shower and completing my daily care necessities. After I got dressed in my attire, I noted the time on the clock to be 6 a.m. I had 2 hours before class started. I made my bed quickly and sat down on top in the lotus position, beginning my morning meditation. It's been 4 years since Kimimaro, Haku, and I have arrived and become official citizens of the Leaf Village. A lot has happened in these past 4 years. For one, Kimimaro, Haku, Naruto, Sasuke, myself and many others are 11 years old of age now. Our graduation exam will be later today, which will consist of a written and practical portion. One of the basic requirements to graduate is to successfully perform the clone jutsu. This will be a cinch. It also means that Naruto will fail and he will steal the scroll of sealing tonight from the Hokage's residence. During these past 4 years, I was finally able to obtain a few sets of the special kunai I wanted to use for my Flying Thunder God technique. I even took up an apprenticeship in blacksmithing and weapon forging, all for the sake of making my own weapons. This not only helped me make some money, but also allowed me to save money by making my own instead of buying them. Naturally, I also ended up making more senbon needles for Haku, and Kimimaro is a living weapon, so there was no need for him to carry any. I started getting a handle on the Rasengan, but it's not perfect yet. For now it takes me too long to build up the chakra, contain it, and spin it violently. By the time I finish all the steps, my opponent would have slit my throat, and I doubt my enemies would wait for me to complete my jutsu. If I try to build up my Rasengan too fast, then I lose out on the power, and at most it'll act like a super strong punch with some extra force behind it, but it won't bring out the desired effect. My best bet is to try the shadow clone tactic that Naruto used if I really need to use this technique. One other struggle I'm having is with the Flying Thunder God jutsu. I've pretty much mastered the technique to teleport myself. The problem is that teleporting other objects or people is truly complicated. Having to connect my chakra with theirs or connecting them to my teleportation sealing network is difficult to master. It currently takes up too much chakra to transport other objects and people, since I don't have a good grasp on this yet. I let out a deep sigh. I can only continue working at it. On the plus side, I've increased the total amount of chakra my body can contain. Now I won't be so helpless when I meet dangerous opponents. I'm confident in taking on any Chunin level expert and even ordinary Jonin level opponents. I'm not sure what my chances would be though if I had to face someone like Kakashi right now, though I'm confident I can escape with my life. Which brings me to wonder who my Jonin instructor will be after graduation. I slowly opened my eyes as I felt the warmth of the sunlight aglow my back. I turned to look at the clock, which noted the time as 7:59 a.m. Class began in the next minute. However, I didn't panic. I got off my bed and made sure I wasn't missing anything before activating the Flying Thunder God technique. I instantly arrived inside the treetop of a large bushy tree by the academy entrance. Then with the body flicker jutsu I arrived in my classroom seat with a puff of smoke just as the bell rang signaling the beginning of class. Haku turned to look at me and said, "Big brother, you're still using that trick to get to class exactly when the bell rings. Even on the last day of class. No one other than you and me knows that Izaya can use that jutsu." Kimimaro said to Haku. I simply gave them a smile. By now everyone in class was used to my antics of using the body flicker technique to rush into class. What they didn't know was that I used the Flying Thunder God technique first to get all the way near the academy entrance first. Sasuke stared at our corner for a bit before turning back to what he was doing. And that was absolutely nothing. He sat there with his elbows propped up on the table and chin resting on his hands. During these 4 years Sasuke had been more conscious of Kimimaro, Haku, and myself since we showed a similar talent to his own. I believe he acknowledged us as worthy rivals these past 4 years, and while he still keeps a bit of his indifferent attitude, he isn't all that cold towards us. He at least answers back with sentences when we talk. For the 4 of us in this class, shuriken and kunai throwing was too easy. The same went for the fundamentals of chakra control and the other topics the academy taught. The truth is that if Kimimaro, Haku, and I wanted to, we could have graduated from the academy earlier, but we refrained from doing so. The reason being, it was because I wanted Kimimaro and Haku to have a bit of a more normal childhood in this life than the harsh life they had in the anime and manga I read in my previous one. Their talent and potential still remained the same, only they went about a different way to acquire their skills this time. Using my knowledge of the anime and manga from my previous life, I was able to help give them some pointers and guidance. By now both Kimimaro and Haku were a foe to be reckoned with. They definitely wouldn't lose out to any chunin nor low-level jonin. Since we decided to take things at a more leisurely pace, we showed off just enough skill to grant us the title of genius but refrained from showing off too much. Iruka-sensei soon walked in and explained to us the details of the test. We all began the written examination first. The first to finish at nearly the same time was Sasuke, Haku, Kimimaro, and Iruka-sensei didn't seem too surprised at this, but he did look a bit worried for Naruto. During these past 4 years I attempted to help Naruto out, but he really didn't have much patience. While his relationship with me and the other 2 could be considered as entering the good friends realm, we couldn't do much for his acts of mischief. I do believe, however, that he'll do decently well on the written portion at least. With our addition to the class and becoming good friends with Naruto, he had at least picked up some academic knowledge. Once time ran out for the written portion, we began the practical portion. Some simple taijutsu movements and whatnot, and lastly the clone technique, which everyone had passed except Naruto. I watched at the side as Naruto and Iruka played out the familiar scene I recalled from my previous life. Not long after, Naruto ended up running off. Well, I won't bother with the next set of events, I silently thought to myself. Naruto will succeed in the shadow clone jutsu once he takes the scroll of sealing. Iruka might get hurt, but overall he'll be fine, and Mitsuki the traitor will fail. I turned away and looked towards Haku and Kimimaro, who were conversing with the others like Kiba, Ino, Shino, Choji, etc. Concern flashed past my eye momentarily as I stared at Kimimaro. He should be feeling his health deteriorating soon, if not already. It might not be that severe right now, but it'll get worse in the next couple years. In my past life he died at age 15, but he was already bedridden before that. I looked down at my hand, which held a leaf Shinobi headband. I tied it to my left thigh and walked over to the group for a chat. Unsurprisingly, we decided to all go celebrate with some barbecue meat at Yakiniku-Q. We all sat around a large group table chatting amiably amongst ourselves. Seriously though, do you really think Naruto isn't going to graduate? Choji asked as he picked up a piece of meat to eat. Sigh. It can't be helped, those are the requirements for graduating. Shikamaru replied while grilling some more meat. We continued our idle chatter and small-scale celebration for an hour and a half before we disbanded. It was already 3 p.m. in the afternoon. The list of the three-man squad and their Jonin instructor was going to be released tomorrow early the next morning, and so there wasn't much for anyone to do except wait. Haku, Kimimaro and I walked around town a bit before I paused. Kimimaro, tell me honestly. How do you feel? I asked with a solemn expression. Both Kimimaro and Haku were startled by the question. What do you mean, big brother? Is something wrong with Maro? Haku asked anxiously. Kimimaro remained silent for a moment before letting out a sigh and speaking. I knew I couldn't fool you for long, Izaya. I've sensed the changes in my body recently. As you know, the body of the Kaguya clan are slightly different than those of others. I feel my body slowly weakening over time. Currently it's not that bad. I essentially don't feel any different than I normally do. I can utilize my jutsu and Keki Genkai without any serious problems for now. What? Brother Maro. Let me help you. I've learned some medical ninjutsu during these past 4 years. No, we should go to the hospital and let them take a look at you. They should be able to treat you. Haku exclaimed worriedly. I let out a deep breath before speaking. Amen. I'm glad you answered me honestly, Kimimaro. I've sensed the slight changes in your body and can see your chakra flow is slightly deviated. Only slightly. This may become more pronounced later on if you overexert yourself. From the looks of things, so long as you don't push yourself too hard, you'll be fine for another 3, maybe 4 years. After that I can't be so sure. I'm not sure Konoha's hospital can cure you, but if worst comes to worst they should be able to help prolong your life. The only one who can truly help you is one of the legendary Sannin named Tsunade. She's supposed to be the greatest medical ninja in the world, so if anyone can figure it out it'd be her. For now let's not worry too much about your condition as long as you promise Haku and I something. Kimimaro stared me in the eyes before giving in. All right, what do I have to promise? I nodded my head acknowledging his wise decision. No matter what, you are not allowed to push yourself too hard until we are able to meet Tsunade and have her diagnose you. Not even if our Haku and my own life are in danger. Kimimaro wanted to protest, however Haku didn't let him. No buts, brother Maro. Big brother and I know that you are strong, but don't you agree that big brother and I are also strong? In fact, big brother might be the strongest out of the 3 of yous. What we want more than anything is you to be alive and well, not for you to put yourself in harm's way for us. Big brother and I are capable of protecting ourselves, and if we really need to, Big brother and I have multiple strategies to allow for our escape and survival. So right now, until you are cured, you have to put your own health and safety above ours, okay? Haku lectured. I placed a reassuring arm on Kimimaro's shoulder. Haku is right, Kimimaro. Remember, we live together and protect each other. As sworn brothers. That means you have to trust us on this. I promise, we won't think any less of you. Once you get cured you can become your stubborn self again, okay? I gave him a confident smile. Haku then placed his hand in between all of us. I placed my hand on top of his, which prompted Kimimro to place his hands atop of mine. Brothers forever, Haku said. I nodded and repeated, brothers forever. Kimimro looked where our hands intersected and had a warm feeling of belonging inside of him. Amen. He nodded his head. Brothers forever. Chapter 9. Everyone was up early the next morning and crowded by the classroom entrance. Looks like everyone who passed the graduation exam and became a genin are here. I walked over to where Haku and Kimimro were standing. Big brother, you're here early today, Haku said with a surprised smile on his face. Ha ha, well I figured I should be early and see who all the new genin are, I replied. I turned to look where Sakura and Ino were arguing and saw Naruto sitting on the floor. Looks like everything went as I thought it would last night. Naruto successfully learned the Shadow Clone Jutsu and graduated with us. Suddenly a realization struck me. Doesn't Naruto and Sasuke accidentally kiss during this meeting? Lo and behold, Naruto propped himself up on Sasuke's desk and stared intently in his eyes. Very closely. Ha ha, I inwardly chuckled. Not sure what to make of this. I'll just enjoy the show, I guess. Not long after the event played out exactly as I predicted. The student sitting in front of Naruto leaned back and bumped Naruto, forcing his and Sasuke's lips to meet. A full-on kiss. I face-palmed. As a sensory-type ninja, my senses were more attuned than others, but it didn't take one to feel the fire of wrath and rage coming off from the mob of girls standing to the side. The whole fiasco continued to play out exactly as I remembered it as. Not long after, Iruka-sensei walked in to congratulate us and explain to us what was to come. From here on, you'll be in a squad of 3 and carry out missions with your Jonin instructor. Wonder who's gonna be paired with Sasuke? Ino remarked mockingly to Sakura. Who knows? Sakura replied with an air of indifference. However, internally she was gearing up for war. Some other students were also discussing the prospect of who they were going to be paired up with. I hope to be paired with Haku, he's so handsome. That's fine, I'd rather be paired with Izaya. Haku is almost too pretty, he makes me look bad. Izaya is incredibly handsome and cool, and that blindfold makes him seem so mysterious. You two should probably stop daydreaming. I'm definitely getting paired up with one of the 4 Genin Kings. I shuddered inwardly as I heard that. It was a nickname that everyone in the academy started calling us after we showed off our skills. They were obviously referring to Kimimro, Haku, Sasuke, and myself. Well, before it was just the 4 Academy Kings, but looks like the name changed since we've become Genin. Please Lord Third, keep me together with Kimimro and Haku, I silently prayed. Sasuke inwardly sneered when he heard that he'd have to be paired with 2 others. They'll only slow me down, he thought. He then gave a sideways glance at us. Except for maybe those 3, he thought. We then turned our attention back at Iruka-sensei, who continued to explain. Now the groups have already been decided based on balance or synergy. As Iruka-sensei continued to list out the teams, he eventually got to Team 7. Team 7. Uzumaki Naruto, Hirano Sakura, and Uchiha Sasuke. Team 8. Hyuga Hinata, Inuzuka Kiba, Aburame Shino. Team 10. Yamane Karino, Narashikamaru, Akimichi Choji. And finally Team 11. Kaguya Kimimro, Yuki Haku, Karasuma Izaya. That's all. Right after Iruka-sensei finished his speech, Naruto immediately made a fuss. Sasuke had a slight look of disappointment but otherwise remained indifferent. A girl then raised her hand and asked, Iruka-sensei, didn't you say that the teams were made to best balance their strength? How come Kimimaro-kun, Haku-kun, and Izaya-kun are paired together? Aren't they three geniuses? If there's a mistake somewhere, I don't mind being paired with one of them. A lot of other students, not just the girls, nodded their agreement. Ahem. Iruka coughed. Then said, I did say balance or synergy. He then turned to look at Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji. You all may or may not know this, but there is a famous formation that has been passed down from generation to generation called the Ino-Shikacho formation. Hence Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji were placed in a team based on the potential synergy they have. We believe this to be the same for Kimimaro, Haku, and Izaya. Anyway, I will introduce you to your Jonin instructors in the afternoon. Until then you are dismissed. Everyone went their separate ways until the afternoon. Clearly everyone went to find some place to have lunch before coming back. I silently thanked Lord Third for keeping me together with Kimimaro and Haku. Big brother. We're together with brother Maro. Let's go out and get some food to celebrate. Haku said excitedly. Amen. I'm glad we were put in the same group also. I would have protested if I wasn't. Kimimaro said. I stared blankly at Kimimaro for a second. Really? I silently thought to myself. While I'm glad we were put in the same group so I could help monitor his situation and all, he really is still dedicated to that one-track mind of his. He's gotten better at opening himself up, but he really is a bit too stubborn once he sets his mind on something. I put on a genuine smile. All right, let's walk around the town for a bit and grab some street food. We should relax and enjoy the outdoors for a bit before meeting our Jonin teacher. I said. I gave a quick glance at Team 7 before heading out the door. It didn't take long before we had to come back to the classroom. Everyone waited obediently as their Jonin instructor came to pick them up. The only ones who were left in the classroom were Team 7 and Team 11, us. Oi, Kakashi, why did you drag me along with you? Yamato said. Because I felt like it. He replied. Yamato face-palmed. We're really late, you know. I have to meet my team still. Yamato said dejectedly. Kakashi simply gave him a smile before turning serious. Yamato, Lord Third has asked me to not only look after Naruto and Sasuke, but also those three kids that you've been put in charge of. Yamato turned serious as well. I know. Aside from you, Lord Third has also tasked me with the job of being on standby in case the Nine Tails goes out of control, and because you are skilled in the use of your Sharingan, you're the best suited to guide Sasuke. But why did he ask you to look after those three kids as well? Kakashi took something out from his pocket with a ringing sound. A pair of bells. He then handed them over to Yamato. To be honest, I'm not too sure. Lord Third didn't really explain much to me except for the fact that those three have certain special circumstances concerning their background. That kid Kimimaro is supposedly the last remaining survivor of the Kaguya clan, and that kid Haku is the only known sole surviving member of the Yuki clan. Other than those two, Lord Third told me that the kid Izaya has an even more special identity than the other two and should be protected with great care. Yamato had a look of bewilderment at this revelation. Sweat was visible on top of his forehead. And Lord Third put me in charge of this group of kids. That's a bit much, no? He then looked down at the bells that Kakashi handed him. You want me to give those three kids this test? Kakashi nodded. That's right. Other than Naruto and Sasuke, Lord Third has also entrusted me to look after those three kids. Therefore, I want you to test them. The reason Lord Third placed you as the Jonin in charge is because you're one of the most skilled Jonin in the village. No one else is more suitable. Yamato let out a long sigh in defeat. All right, Senpai, for you and Lord Third I'll do my best, but seriously we need to get going. How are my new precious students going to view me now that I'm so late? Not long after Kakashi and Yamato made their way to the classroom. I mused internally. So it's Yamato. Indeed, other than Might Guy, perhaps the only other truly notable combat Jonin would be Yamato. I was inwardly elated. If Yamato truly is our instructor, then I will have plenty of chances to learn how to do the wood-style jutsu from him. Just as I had guessed, Yamato took the three of us to a separate location as our Jonin instructor. Yamato paused and took a good look at us. This is the first time I'm seeing these kids, but they give off an air of being pretty capable. All right, we should first do introductions to get to know each other. My name is Yamato and I'll be your Jonin instructor. I want you guys to introduce yourselves. Tell me what kind of hobbies you have and what dreams you have. Haku smiled and went first. Hello Yamato-sensei. My name is Yuki Haku. My hobbies are reading, studying medicinal herbs, training, and being with my two brothers. My dream is to be a person who my brothers can depend on and be strong enough to protect them forever. Goo. Yamato felt an emotional tear well up. This child is very precious, he thought. Kimimaro went next. My name is Kaguya Kimimaro. I am the last surviving member of my clan. My hobbies are keeping my brothers safe. In the future I want to be strong enough to protect them from any harm. Yamato nodded. Very well. Your goal is very straightforward and clear. I can tell you are a straightforward person as well. Just don't forget that you must also think about yourself. If you cannot help yourself, then you are no help to your brothers. At that moment Kimimaro recalled the words that Haku and Izaya had spoken to him the other day. He stood up and bowed towards Yamato as he finally realized that he should also try and rely on his brothers more and said, "Thank you Yamato-sensei, I shall remember your teachings." Yamato didn't expect such a drastic show of respect, so he embarrassingly nodded his head in acknowledgement. I was the last to go. My name is Karasuma Izaya. My hobbies are training, and making sure my brothers are safe and happy. My future aspiration is to become one of the strongest Shinobi in the world and be strong enough to protect those I care about. I also hope to travel and see many places and discover more about the world and leave my mark upon it. Oh, those are quite the aspirations for one so young. I'm sure you'll do great. Yamato assented. But first, you will have to pass my test. Haku gave a sideways glance. What kind of test, Yamato-sensei? He asked. It's a survival exercise. I'll explain more tomorrow. Meet me at Training Ground 3 at 5 a.m. tomorrow. You should skip breakfast so you won't cramp up. Bring all your ninja tools and whatever else you need to prepare for a survival exercise. You're all dismissed. Yamato said. I left right after with Haku and Kimimaro in tow with a smirk on my face. So it's the bell exam. I wonder if every team does this or if this was a request from Lord Third or Kakashi-sensei. Oh well, it doesn't really matter since the most important facet is teamwork and there's no problem with our teamwork. More importantly, now that we're Genin, I suppose it's okay for us to show off a little more skill than we normally do. Early the next morning Haku, Kimimaro and I showed up at Training Ground 3. Surprisingly, Sensei isn't here yet. Haku said aloud. Well, he was really late when picking us up yesterday. Kimimro replied. Haku then turned to see me carrying a large bento. Big brother, why do you have a large bento with you? I smirked. For our breakfast, of course. I know Yamato-sensei said that we should skip breakfast, but I don't sense his presence anywhere near here. I suspect that he told us that on purpose so we'd lose focus during the actual exam, therefore, we should eat something first. I then proceeded to open the bento box and distributed our fair share of food. As we sat there and waited, the seconds became minutes, and minutes became hours. Wow, Big Brother was right. Yamato-sensei probably told us to skip breakfast on purpose. This means that the actual survival test had already begun yesterday. Haku said. MN. Izaya has good foresight. Kimimro chimed in. Ha ha. I simply gave an embarrassed chuckle. Can't tell them that I suspected it already due to my past life's knowledge. I then turned serious. Kimimro, even though this is just a survival exercise and there's no external danger to your life, you must still exercise caution. This time, Haku and I will be in the vanguard while you be the support. Don't overexert yourself, okay? Big brother is right. If you absolutely have to, only use your small-scale Keki Genkai techniques or Earth style. Haku commented. MN. I'll do as you both say. Kimimro consented. We ended up waiting until 10 a.m. when we finally saw Yamato-sensei approach us. He had an apologetic look on his face and apologized, but we didn't take it to heart. He then placed an alarm clock on one of the wooden practice logs and pulled out a pair of bells. All right. These are a pair of silver bells. Your objective is to take these bells from me. One bell represents one person. You will have until noon to succeed. But Yamato-sensei, there are only 2 bells and 3 of us. You aren't suggesting that only 2 of us will pass, are you? Haku asked, concerned. Yamato coughed. That's right. The first 2 who obtain these bells are the 2 who pass. Inwardly Yamato cursed himself and Kakashi. This wasn't his style of teaching and he was a terrible actor. Haku looked at both Kimimro and I with a concerned gaze. Sensei, may I have a word with my brothers? I asked. Yamato nodded. I simply brought them over a bit further away to huddle up in discussion. Okay, you two, the plan remains the same. Haku and I will be the vanguard and Kimimro will back us up. I don't think Sensei has realized what he's up against. We can afford to show a little more skill than we normally do now since we've become genin. No need to go all out, but we should show enough skill to pressure Sensei into realizing that we're more skillful than he originally thought. As for the bells, instead of snatching them away, let's aim to destroy them. That way Sensei can't say anything about it since that wasn't against the rules. If the rules are placed against us in the first place, then we'll just make our own. MN, this sounds like a good plan. Haku nodded. Very well, I'll watch both of your backs. Kimimro consented. We then returned by Sensei's side. Looks like they're done discussing, Yamato mentally thought. All right. Remember, come at me with the intention to kill. If you don't, then you might regret it later. If you're ready, then start, he said.